1966 was when my father decided to come out here to work on a refinery. And the skilled labor that the refinery demanded, we didn't have it here in St. Croix. So the powers that be within the refinery, Hess and his administration recruited people from Long Island. Trinidad, Tobago, Dominica, St. Kitts, Nevis, Antigua, all these different places, people came. And the brilliance of that was that in some of these places like Trinidad, people were already working in the oil industry. People had skills that's what needed, like pipe fitting, how to handle pumps, millwrights, all those different kind of things. So people came. My parents wanted a better life for us. And you have to recognize that 1966 was only 4 years removed from independence. Trinidad and Tobago got its independence from Great Britain in 1962. So life wasn't easy. And my father, in his infinite wisdom, said, we can do better in this. So one by one, he got documentation for my siblings. And he began the process of bringing us out. But again, the school that I was going to at the time was one of the best schools. And he said, you're going to have to stay there and finish your education. So I spent all of my vacation time here, the summertime, Christmas vacation, and so on. And then went back to Trinidad to finish up my education there every year until I finally came out here in 1974 for good. But even in Trinidad, I had a passion for running. I think running was my safe zone, the space where I can just be myself, think, meditate, be at peace, escape. It was an escape. So where we lived in Sobo Village, La Brea, from there to Mosquito Creek, close to San Fernando, was about 8 miles. And on any Sunday morning, I'll get up and go run 8 miles up and 8 miles back, 16 miles. So I had no idea I was already training for life as a military man and also as a long distance marathon runner, Olympian that I'll become eventually. So I graduated from Destiny Secondary School in 1974. And by the end of that year, I enlisted in the military. So in January of 1975, I joined the military, US military. I turned 18 in September of 74. It was a difficult time for me. And I think one of the main reasons I joined the military was that the refinery wasn't hiring anybody at that time. I didn't want to be sitting around doing nothing. So I signed up to join the military. And that changed my entire perspective on life. It changed me. Because before me, I had some siblings. Maurice, I mentioned Maurice before. He served with 82nd Airborne Division. And Hezron, who's like 4 years older than I am, he was also a medic, combat medic. And the ironic thing about this is that in 1975, the United States was still at war in Southeast Asia, Vietnam. The Vietnam conflict was still going on. I think they were making plans to come out. But they told me that as a medic, medical specialist, combat medic, my life expectancy was half of a second. I'm like, wow, is that what I signed up for? And the reason behind that was that on the battlefield, the enemy was trained to take out the platoon commander, the radio man, and the medic. That way you have no leadership, you have no way to make any communication, and you have no way to take care of the wounded. And I said, so what? So I made up my mind. I joined the military, training at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, basic training. Went on to advanced individual training at Fort Sam Houston, trained to become a combat medic. And at that point, I signed up to join an airborne unit, the training how to jump out of planes. Now I sit in planes and I look down from the sky and I said, I had to be bona fide crazy to jump out of a plane. But at age 18, your life is before you, and it's like, You get a tiger by the tail, you just hold onto the tiger and you just ride a tiger, So in the military, at 82nd Airborne Division, our training every day was running at least 4 or 5 miles. And because of my background in Trinidad, having run all those miles by myself, running in the Army wasn't anything. And 4 miles wasn't enough, so I started expanding on that. I'll go further. I'll run my 5 miles in the morning, and then in the evening time, once you sign out, then I'll go for another run. And I had no idea about running or becoming an Olympian at that time. I just ran because, again, it was time for me to focus, to be at peace with myself. I just loved to run. People thought I was crazy because I ran everywhere. And I rose to the point where they wanted me to serve on the Army's running team. And I was about to do that when I'd actually re-enlisted for another 4 years. And I was hoping to join, or just to go to school to become a lab technician. And that fell through. I went to school in Texas again, and the class was full. There was no space in the class for me, even though I'd already signed a contract to go to school there. So I asked my commander, I said, well, what should I do? He said, well, you got 3 choices. 1, we can send you to any duty station in the world that you want to go to of your choice. Or 2, you can choose another MOS, that's what they call it, another course, or you can go home. I said, on that moment, I said, write me a ticket, let me go home. That's why I came out of the military. But even before that, at the 82nd Airborne Division, I even furthered my craziness there. I joined a group of, went to school for it, a group of men, a selected few, who were trained, and all named were Recondos, Reconnaissance Commando. That was one of the most difficult things I've ever done in my life. In my class, 104 soldiers started, and only 38 graduated from the program. It was so intense. But it taught me some skills about life in the wilderness, living off the land. And it also gave me an idea of how extreme I can be and still come out of it unscathed. So that also helped shape my life. So I left the military in 1978, came back to St. Croix, and a bunch of road races. Long distance running was just taking off. I met my good friend who became my mentor, Wallace Williams. And I used to jump in all the races, won the races. And Wallace said, one day he said, Marlon, you're wasting your time here. I said, what do you mean? He said, you should be in school somewhere, getting an education and fine-tuning your running skills. I said, what do you suggest? He said, well, in Kentucky, there's a school, Western Kentucky University. He said, last year they were ranked 2nd in the nation. I tried to hook you up with a scholarship there, but they're already full as it relates to scholarships. So if you go there, you'll have to walk on and pay your own way. And by then, I was already working at the refinery. The thing about working at the refinery is that it was swing shift. You know, that goes, you work 8 hours and you rotate your shift. So I couldn't really train the way I wanted to train. And then I was already thinking, go to school and train, and maybe what do I do with the training after running all these miles? Maybe Olympics. Maybe. That's when I began thinking about the Olympic Games. And I said, I will go. And I keep dilly-dallying, so to speak. And one day, Wallace said, I got you signed up in school. You're going. I said, what? He said, you already registered? You have to leave this island. I got you hooked up. The basketball coach, that's Wallace saying this, the basketball coach is a friend of mine. Clem Haskins and I grew up together. He played in the NBA, and now he's a basketball coach at Western Kentucky University. When you go there, he will look out for you. And I left there, packed up my bags. I resigned from the refinery, and I went off to school. And that was intense. That was crazy. I met Coach Haskins just to introduce myself, because being an independent human being, I couldn't see myself relying on anybody for anything. I wanted to make sure I do this on my own. And there were times I was really stressed for resources. Financially, there were times I had minimal things to eat, and I still didn't go to Haskins or anything. So even at Western Kentucky University, my regimen was as such where I ran like 5 miles in the morning, and evening time I had a 10-mile run or workout with a track team, cross-country team. And then I had a part-time job. And after my part-time job at Wendy's, I'll go home and try to study for a while. And after that, sleep for a few hours, get up and do the same thing over and over. On Sundays, I went for a long run, 18 to 20 miles. And that was really, really crazy time. But what it did for me was that it positioned me for what's to come next. When I left here to go to school, I had no declared major. So I basically said, well, look, I know physical education can't be anything hard to do. So I signed up as a physical education major, getting straight A's. Again, stuff like biology and stuff came easy to me because, again, of my foundation in Trinidad. Even though I had poor grades, I still retained almost everything I listened and heard. So after a year of being unchallenged, one semester of being unchallenged, I switched my major from physical education to physical therapy. And one fateful day, my friend called me and said, "Mom, you want to make $20?" I said, "Sure." Back then, $20 is a lot of money, right? So Bob Soda said, "Let's go help this man unload a truckload of firewood. He was going to pay us $20 in the cold." I did that, got my $20, and next day I could barely move because I messed up my back so bad doing it. I couldn't sit. I couldn't run. I had to sleep on the floor. By then, I'm already married. Cindy and I got married in '79. And one day I'm standing in class because I couldn't sit down. And the professor said, "Williams, why are you standing?" I said, "I can't sit." She said, "Why?" I said, "I've got a bad back." She said, "See me after class." So after class, I saw Mrs. Erskine, and she said, "You need to see a chiropractor." I said, "What's that?" "I have no idea what a chiropractor is." She said, "Well, my husband is a chiropractor, and I'd like for him to take a look at your back for you." I said, "Ma'am, I have no money." She said, "Don't worry about it. He's going to take care of you." So I went to see this man the next day, and he worked on me, explained to me what my problem is, and he adjusted my back. And the next day I went for a run to test it. I could run. And I said to myself, this is really profound, magical stuff. I said, you know what? I'm going to switch my major from physical therapy to pre-med in its entirety. I want to go to chiropractic school. So I called my father. I said, "Dad, I think I want to become a doctor, you know." He said, "What? Are you sure?" He said, "We don't get the money to do that." I said, "I don't know." I said, "But that's where I want to go." So I started researching student loans and stuff like that, how I can borrow money to get my education. I did my pre-med classes. It was very, very hard. And by then, Shellen was born. Shellen was born in 1982. And I packed up my little family and I moved. But I couldn't find adequate housing. So my sister Sandra, she's a few years younger than I am. She was living in LA. And I asked her if Cindy and Sheldon could stay with her for a while until I get my feet on the ground while going to school. And Sandra volunteered to do that for us. So Cindy and Shell, my baby Sheldon, lived with Sandra in LA for a year. And I can never thank Sandra enough for that, just for taking us in as a family, little family, until I was able to earn enough money with my part-time job. By then I had 2 part-time jobs Still running 15, 20 miles a day. And Cindy and Sheldon came to live with us after a year. So by 1983, I've got the Olympic Committee business on my mind, trying to get ready for the Olympic Games in 1984. And the training was off the scale. I was pretty much my own coach. I did my running in the morning early. Went to classes started like 7:15. And by midday, I'm at the gym. Somebody got me a pass to go to a gym at a hotel where I worked out on the weights. Take a quick shower, came back to class until like 4 or 5 in the evening, go for a run. So I go to my part-time job. one time I worked as a janitor in the school. I worked as a security guard at one time. I mentioned working at Wendy's one time. What's interesting, in undergrad school, I think I was so busy getting my life organized to do things that I had no time to socialize. And I will share that in undergraduate school, I went out one time in all the years of studying there, trying to get my pre-med credits taken care of. My friend Bob Stoner, who used to run with me, our running buddy, he used to work at Pizza Hut. And one night he called me up, he said, Marlon, today's my birthday. I'm at Pizza Hut, there's some leftover pizza. You gonna come hang out with me? I said, sure. Free pizza and beer. So I went out with Bob Stoner and a couple other guys. That was the only time I ever went out in undergrad school. I had no time to go and hang out with classmates or even my guys on the running team. That didn't happen. Because if I wasn't in the classroom, I'm running. If I was running, I'm with my little family. If I'm not with my little family, I'm working. And that was my existence for several years. Several years of just intense dedication to a mindset and a certain concept where I know I can grow and excel and become. You know, I'm not saying this lightly because most of us want to have a successful life, but a whole bunch of us don't want to make the sacrifices for it. And there are times when, as I grew and become as a doctor, people say, yeah, you guys have it good. I have no idea what I went through there. I'm not going to call it hell, but the difficulty, military life, and then undergrad school, and just struggling. But, you know, with a vision, with a purpose, you know, and trusting in a superior being and trusting in my God-given skills, I knew I could have done it. I knew that failure wasn't an option because in my family, there are no failures. I look at what my father did, where he came from with his elementary school education to rise to a position where he's a manager at a major refinery, second largest oil refinery in the world. And my father is a supervisor managing all the maintenance on this high-tech machinery without any kind of formal training or education. He taught himself. So that was one of my guiding principles as it relates to some of the things that drove me to success. So 1984, I'm at Logan College of Chiropractic. And I think it was my 5th trimester then. It takes like 10 trimesters to complete a program, a 5-year program. And the Olympic Games were about to happen the summer of '84 in LA. I tested out of some classes and I made sure that I stayed in contact with my professors where I can do work, submit it. And I went out to LA for 3 weeks. Cindy was still out there and Sheldon. We lived at my sister's place. So I didn't have to stay in the village. I had a room in the village, but I stayed at my sister's house. And my event is the marathon. 26.2 miles of running through the streets of Los Angeles, a smog clouded city. And it was something else. It was quite an experience. The most difficult thing that happened to me in the village when I was there was that I developed an abscess tooth. And one morning I woke up, I saw my face. This is like 1 week into my stay. My face is swollen. So in the Olympic Village, all healthcare is taken care of. All the food is taken care of. And the Games of '84 was the first game that turned a profit. Peter Ueberroth was director of the game, so he solicited help from major corporations who would get a chance to advertise what they produce and stuff like that, and in return, they offered big bucks. And then we had all these first-class chefs who had a chance to come to the village and cook for these athletes. So we had chefs from Louisiana, man. Look, I'm talking about some incredible food. And here I am in the Olympic Village, getting ready to run the marathon. I couldn't eat. So I went to the dentist. You have doctors who donated the time to take care of the athletes who were not well. And by then I'm dropping weight rapidly. I said, I can't run a marathon, dropping all this weight, man. So I asked the doctor, I said, what's going to happen? He said, well, we have to do a root canal for you. I said, no. He said, yeah, if you want to improve. So I said, okay, I'll submit to a root canal. So he did it. And I got my antibiotics and stuff. The swelling went away. I was still running, not running as hard as I could have. I was still running, but I recovered to the point where I could run the marathon. On race day, I had agreed to meet Cindy and Sheldon. Sheldon was 3 years old at mile 20, so I can get kind of emotional boost just seeing my true love and my son. Before then, I had issues with shoes, trying to find a perfect shoe for the race, and I couldn't. I had some arch problems. So what I did, I taped up my arches to support them, arches of my feet. The race started, and both my feet were hurting like hell. I said, I can't run. So it must be the shoes I got on. So I took my shoes off at the second mile of the race. By then, I just sat down and took my shoes off. By then, all my competitors are long gone, and I'm still struggling with this pair of shoes. Took them off. I'm the last person in the race running. And the crowd on either side of the road is like 10 deep, watching this athlete struggle. So I took the shoes off, and the pain didn't go away in my feet. I said, it's got to be something else. I kept on running. And then I figured it out. I said, it's the tape. It's the tape I had on my arches. It was taped too tight. There's an ambulance behind me. I signaled to the ambulance. They drove up. I stopped. I said, you got a pair of scissors? The guy said, scissors? I said, yeah. He said, what do you want the scissors for? I said, I need to cut the tape off my feet. And they fished out the scissors for me. I sat down in the middle of the road. I cut the tape away from my feet. I still have tape on my 2 big toes, but on my arches, I cut it off. And the pain went away instantly. And like I said before, by then, I couldn't see anybody. But then I was well trained for the race, even though I'm way behind. Last person in the race, I kept on running with no shoes. I said to myself, I have 24 miles to go without shoes. I hope I can make it, right? But then we grew up in Trinidad, you grow up barefoot, run around barefoot, your feet are kind of tough, but not tough enough for this kind of thing. And most of the roadway is made of concrete and a yellow line down the middle. If you know what this concrete is not smooth because it's created rough, so the cars can have traction on it. Those spicules in the concrete, and they beat my feet up. After a while, I started looking for the yellow line to run on the paint because it wasn't that painful. I said, man, can I really do this? And the people on either side of the road, their encouragement was deafening. motivated me and encouraged me to continue. At mile 17, I started seeing some competitors. I said, yes, I can do this. I started passing people at mile 17. I got to mile 20 looking for my wife and my son, and I didn't see them. And I was crestfallen because I'm like, I just wanted to see somebody I knew and I love. And there were a few students who skipped school just to come out there to LA Olympic Games to see me run. I got to mile 22, I saw Cindy and Sheldon and my classmates. And I stopped to get a hug from my wife. And in an international competition like that, the spectators cannot engage with the athletes. Police officers surrounding you. You have protection every step of the way, right? And Cindy came up to me and hugged Cindy, and police officers grabbed Cindy. Miss, you know you can't touch the athlete. She said, this is my husband. I said, sir, this is my wife. This is my son. These are my friends. I got a hug from everybody, all my competitors. I mean my wife and my family. And I felt motivated then. I said, I got 4 miles to go. I'm still passing people now. I got to mile 25 with 1.2 miles to go. And I saw a man named Dieudonné Lamont from Haiti. I reckon in 1979, I competed against him in St. Kitts, half marathon day. And he beat the pants off of me. He won the race. I finished third. Another guy from the States finished second. And I said, I can catch Lamont because he's slowing. And I ran him down. I caught him and passed him with about half mile to go. And I came into the stadium in LA because the marathon back then was always the last event before closing ceremonies. And I got there, came through the tunnel into the stadium, the light, and everybody in the stadium were on their feet. Everybody was on their feet, just cheering me. It was so thunderous. I think I ran that last lap around the track. I didn't feel it. It's like I was floating on all this energy that the crowd was producing, and they were yelling, Bikila, Bikila, because I think it was 1960 and 1964, Bikila ran without shoes. Abiy Bikila from Ethiopia. So this was reminiscent of that. And it moved me like I can't imagine. I finished the race, and by then my entire body was in such pain with the pounding of running without shoes. I'm talking about not just jogging, I'm talking about running. I had a lot of time to make up. I was still able to pass people and finish the race in the stadium. It was a difficult thing to accomplish, but still I think one of my best Olympic efforts because of issues with my health, the abscess tooth and issues with the shoes. But I wanted to finish because the main thing is that I said I know I wasn't going to win a medal. The time I started training for distance running, most people had started maybe 10 years before me training. But I know I could make an impression, represent the place where I live, the US Virgin Islands, and also to leave a lasting legacy for my children. It was like setting the bar, letting them know that impossible is nothing. Most people say, nothing's impossible. We say impossible is nothing. You can make it happen, whatever. Once you have a goal and a commitment to excellence. So finished the race. The next day I flew back to St. Louis, Missouri to go back to classes the next day. The very next day I was in school. So I stayed at Logan College of Chiropractic, finished up my education there. And I got a job after school working for a doctor in New Orleans, Louisiana. Spent 2 years there. That's where Jay was born. But even while there, I was also preparing for the 88 Olympic Games. The 88 Games was held in Seoul, Korea. the summer of 88. I just opened up my practice here in St. Croix. I was to leave my practice and to go to compete. I was driven to do it. Because most people open up a new business and won't leave it for 3 weeks to go to the other end of the world, halfway around the world, to run a race. So I did a marathon there. In 1992, I did the marathon, well, not the marathon, I did the 10,000 meters and the 5,000. I double up on events on the track in Barcelona, Spain. And in 1996, I was like 1 week shy of my 40th birthday. I did a marathon again in Atlanta, the Olympic Games. And one of the things that moved me then was that before the race started, I look at my competitors. I say, hey, I'm almost 40 years old. And I see people like 20, 22, 24, 30. I feel like a grandpa among them. But it was my last stand. And my family came out as well. Cindy was there. Shell and Jay met me in the stadium as I finished the race. My good friend Will Schlintzog, he flew out from San Diego, California, just to come hang with me. He was there in LA in 84. And he said, yeah, I'm coming back to see you on your last Olympic marathon. So the Olympic events were very significant in my career, in my life. It was living a life of excellence, a life of dedication, knowing that I know that a whole bunch of people aspired to Olympism or tried to make a team for their country and never really made it. And I had a chance to do that on a world stage, international stage, 4 times. 4 times. Again, the dedication that goes into it, man, it's almost like you have to give up a certain part of your life to make things happen. Early to bed, early rising, the gym, back on the track, hill training, taking care of the aches and pains. The times you do it to extreme where you hurt yourself. But in the back of my mind, I knew I can do this. And I wanted my children, I know my grandchildren know that my kids, my sons say, my dad is an Olympian. My grandchildren like, yeah, grandpa is an Olympian. Because once you're an Olympian for life. It's not like I was an Olympian, no. On any given moment, there are about 100,000 living Olympians. The planet has about 8 billion people. So just a very select few aspire to that level of competition on the world stage. And we'll just do it. Along with my Olympic career, I also competed on our cross-country team, the national cross-country team for the U.S. Virgin Islands. So cross-country championships in different parts of the world, marathons in different parts of the world, 10K races. I've seen the world in that regard. And then when I retired from Olympic competition, I couldn't do it. The reason I had to retire is because growing older, my body couldn't handle the level of stress as I grew older, the way it handled it when I was younger. So I knew it was time to step away from it. It was very, very hard to do, going from being a purpose-driven international athlete to pulling back to normalcy. It took me years to get to that point. I used to go down to Haypenny Beach, mile of sand. I'll spend an hour, 2-3 hours just walking back and forth in the sand to turn the beast off. That competitive animal, I had to turn it off. If I didn't, I knew it would have destroyed me. And then in 1997, I figured if I can do a marathon, I can also do an ultra marathon. So in 1997, I trained right here in St. Croix. I trained to do an ultra marathon in Durban, South Africa. A race that's 54 miles long. Yeah, 54 miles. To train for it, I used to get up here on a Sunday morning and do 6 laps around the airport. That's like 42 point something miles. I'll run from 2:30 in the morning till like 5. No, I'm sorry, 2:30 until like 7:30. 5 hours of running. Every time I finish the loop, every time I come around, I'll have Gatorade or water, or banana to keep my energy up. Just train for it. But that, on race day, that was a hard thing. 54 miles of just purposeful running. So I ran. And now I am content to jog. I'm content to walk and literally stop and smell the roses. I do that. I stop and smell roses now. I'm glad that phase of my life is over because I know I couldn't keep it up forever. So cutting back from that intensity to where I am right now is just pure joy. I'm out there every day now, about 3 times a week. I take pictures of sunsets, sunrises, flowers, landscapes, animals I see, and I post them, I share them to people on Facebook and other mediums because I know that there are a lot of people out there who don't have the wherewithal to get outside. There are people in beds, hospital beds, or shut in at home, cannot see outdoors. So I post pictures of outdoors and share with people so it can help lift their spirits. Running has been quite a journey, literally, and I don't regret it. There's someone who thought that at age 66, like right now, my knees will be shot. I would have had to have knee surgery and knee replacement. My knees are fine. They're fine because as a chiropractor, body mechanics specialist, I learned how to use my body without damaging it. So I've built the muscles around my knee joint to the point where they can handle all the stresses of running. So I will not have to have a knee replacement. I'm doing a whole lot better than people who had to have it because of poor use of their joints.